pass the stages of building our temple, we'll come into the kingdom. And now that we are in it, it's possibly just something that we have to stay in to feel the presence of whatever the kingdom connotes. It's not going to take 6 days or 5 days or 4 days to make the journey from earth to heaven. Maybe we've consolidated quite a bit. It's going to take us each longer. The idea is that when we have reached the level of graduation, have come to the 7 angels who are represented in the Bible by the 7 angels who carry the vials, that carry the message, that illuminate all that is unlike God in your consciousness, so that your consciousness is now unobstructed. Then you go and you are very close to the Lamb of God, the Christ. I want to luxuriate in that presence. It just happens that the world celebrates that presence today. But we're celebrating the inner presence, not celebrating the outer presence. This is something that binds man together. On the outer plane, we're pick up a telephone, exchange a few words, send a letter, we receive letters. On the inner plane, our oneness is an experience. There's no intermediary. You feel the presence of the one. And that one is you. And that one is him. And that one is her. There's a silent bond. And in that silent bond, you are unobstructed. You feel the presence of the presence. And therefore, at this moment, you have reached a level of consciousness which you have striven many years to reach. I'm talking in a figurative way because I realize that we haven't reached that level yet. But we are going through the motions of reaching that level and trying to find the experience of what it would be like. So at a touch of the finger, you're one with a fellow anywhere in the world, and he with you. At a touch of the finger, any information you need about anything in the spiritual universe is there. Everything you need in the universe that is invisible is at your fingertips. You pass the human scene. And this is what comes one day. To a level, we each have it differently, but we each will reach it and are reaching it. Where God's kingdom becomes our kingdom. And the kingdom then becomes now. Yesterday, we were working toward it. Suddenly, I'm in it. There are no negatives. Nothing to overcome. You can never be any different than you are today. Nothing can go wrong. You never think about it. To be in this idyllic state is the end result of knowing God aright. All that I have is thine. And when you finally come into having all that God has, and we rest in truth. There are many paths that have to be worn before you can reach this state. And we're going through them right now. Each of us represents a path on the way. This is the end of the path. We're going to stop and think what are the obstructions that we face. What is preventing us from walking into the kingdom? What is holding us here in the fourth state? We can each answer that in part. The things we're concerned about are holding us here. You're concerned about what you're going to do on Tuesday morning. You're going to a job, or your husband's going to a job. There are some deals pending. Maybe you've got some relatives you've got to go to or come to you. There are things to be done. And when you think about them, they're all things of this world. I don't know who's here. I won't even ask. But who's here who will not be doing things of this world on Tuesday? That person is lucky. He or she is accepting something that we, who are busy on Tuesday with things of this world, whether they're joy or not, we don't know about. We just know that we have to do certain tasks. The task of that individual won't come to him till Tuesday. He won't even know what he's going to do Tuesday until it happens. And it will be something that has been sent from the invisible, something measured out to his needs and something he can handle. Something that will express divine wisdom. There's a nowness in spiritual living. See, all the clocks are turned away. No one can tell you the time in heaven. You wouldn't think of walking up to an individual and saying, what time is it? What time do I catch that train? I've got to be here at 4 o'clock. There are no clocks in heaven. There are no clocks in spiritual consciousness. God doesn't run by time. It's one of the cluttering details that disappears. You say, well, they don't get things done then properly. They're not synchronized. But I don't know how to do it. Synchrony is above time, doesn't include time. It seems that what you have to do is done at the right moment. Where you have to be at the right moment. Of course, it only takes a second to get there. Movement is different. What you have to do to get in the car, to ride to another town, 50 miles or 60 miles or 30 miles, the time involved, it isn't there in the seventh heaven. You're there. It's consciousness that travels quicker than the speed of light. You're wherever you have to be or want to be, instantly. You are there already, right now. It's all within your own being, which is omnipresent. Did you notice that when you feel a quickening, somehow you get quicker where you have to go, you think quicker, things resolve themselves quicker? You don't know how you get so special at the time that your thinking is a little bit, it's just so lucid that you just have to think of something, to think of thinking of something, and there it is. That's when the brain is not obstructing you. You're living out of your soul. We want to move into our soul now. We want to see what it's like to live without a brain mechanism that ticks away, and someday doesn't tick away. The thing that separates us from not being alive at one time, it's our source of life, our activity, all we do, everything passes through your brain. Everything. You're really living in your brain. And to think that someday this tool, which seems to us to be a miraculous tool, we don't have it anymore. So this tool must have been copying something. It did a pretty good job, but it was copying something. And this tool becomes a little slower. The vision that it controls becomes a little blurred. The hearing that it controls can't quite make it out. Just imagine the miracle of a tool to control the five senses so well at one time, at their peak level, and then diminish, and yet that tool is not real. Something else is real. Something that hears what it has to hear without a sound. Do you know that you have that hearing without a sound? And that you can see without eyes? And that you will see without eyes? You will hear without ears? This is the miracle of the soul. And it's possible to practice the use of the soul. To develop it. Many artists, in their great moments, see things that their mind doesn't see, their eyes don't see. They themselves don't even know they've been lifted up to a soul level. Colors have more definition. Sound have been made more acute. They can hear sounds that can't be heard by the human ear. They can hear the inner sounds, the inner harmonies. And when we hear them out here, we say, my, that's uncanny. That man's genius. Compared to the mind, he is a genius. The soul has perception at every level of sound, every level of sight, every level of taste. And the soul is available to us. When we awaken from the sleep of the mind, which works in matter, which works in friction. Everything is without friction then, completely fluid. I don't know if at times you find that you hear better than others, but when you do find it, it's because the soul has taken over your hearing. And you're not hearing with the muscles of the ear. You're not hearing with the activity of the brain. That combination which produces human hearing it loses its effectiveness because you're on a higher level. If you reach it first in this kind of fourth dimensional hearing, which is really the kind of extrasensory perception brought up to its limitation and then above it. In other words, you're converted into an ear. You hear anything you have to hear, anywhere in the world. But you don't hear it on sound waves. You don't hear it on radio waves. You hear it on a soul wave. And the only way you can explain it is to hear it. Because when you hear these things and you realize that you can't hear them anywhere, that no one can hear them who's hearing them, then suddenly you know what's happening when you receive the inner voice. What does it come on? It doesn't come on waves that ripple. How does it get to you? There's a direct communication of a soul wave by your soul. When you hear the inner voice speaking to you, if it doesn't say much or it says a lot, no one else can hear it at the same time. No one is tuned into what you're tuned into. And before you get to that place, it takes a long, long time. That's because you're working on sound without the instruments of sound that usually produce it in this world. That's why the receptivity to the inner voice, the still, small voice, is so transfixing. You may be deaf, actually, may not even be able to hear people. And yet when you hear the inner voice, no one can take it away. It doesn't depend on your mechanisms. It would be interesting if a person were deaf, were able to hear the inner voice, and I'm sure there are quite a number. I'd rather be the person who hears the inner voice and is deaf than the one who hears everything but can't hear the inner voice. Sight is the same way. To look directly into the kingdom of heaven, though you're blind. Or to look at this world and be able to see it. There is that kind of vision. There is that kind of hearing. When we get a musical genius, we realize that something has happened to this man. He has been brought above the level of sound, and yet he writes notes that we play back, and we hear music of the gods. We can understand it. We say this is too much. Where did he get it from? How could one man do that? Well, actually, he didn't. It's just that he was tuned into something greater. The supreme artist is also tuned into something greater. He loses what he has. He transcends. And if you've had this experience, you know what a glorious experience it is, and how you feel like a child who's got a God inside him. Something happens. You're translated into another being. And then you realize what you've been working for all these years to reach that state. Because everyone in heaven is in that state. Everyone who has passed the make-believe limitations of this world is in that state. That's the state of God. All that I have is thine. I found a great deal of inexpressible joy in only reaching that state one at a time. Maybe once last year and once the year before, sometimes twice a year. But you are able to find a degree of intelligence that isn't human. It doesn't even think. It just is. And all of your so-called senses are lifted beyond themselves. Sound, sight, all that. It's like one infinite sense. Now, it's very important to us to know these things are possible, because there's no point in striving to attain something that isn't attainable. And we're not striving to attain that particular type of vision or hearing. It's just that we will. It's automatic. And if we're properly prepared, something happens. And when you're properly prepared in a meditation, for example, you feel you're lifted. But when you're lifted, where did your body go? Why do I feel lifted? I don't feel a sense of weight anymore. There was no body to be lifted. You were relieved of the illusion of body. And how did you hear if you had no body? What made you think you have to hear through the ear? That's just a temporary convenience. You don't hear through the ear. You hear through the soul. You see through the soul. You think through the soul. The mind never was. And so we use that mind, crack down on it, try to make it do things that we want it to do. And always we're saying that we didn't know that there is no mind. The mind is the substitute, our facsimile of what the soul is. You're going to be in soul consciousness when you translate. There is a soul consciousness. You won't be thinking anymore. And yet you'll know all you must know without thought. Take no thought for your life. Get into soul consciousness. I know that everyone has had a glimpse of these things. There are certain lucid moments when you see something you never saw before. It's certainly clear to you. Sometimes you look at a picture, for some strange reason, all the colors blot out, but you see something that's there, which is higher than the colors. The musician, all the static, all the music. Suddenly, something else is there. It's a celestial song. That's why when you play certain music, you say, this is heavenly. Unconsciously, you say what it really is. Heavenly. You know, even in business, a man can have that experience. He doesn't know why, but the problem that had locked itself in his mind is no problem anymore. He doesn't know why. It was very complicated, many people involved. He feels it's all taken care of. Because there was a solution above the human level. And in his state of consciousness, he was able to reach that solution. And all of the human problems just fall down. They all crumple. When you have the right solution, the problems aren't there. And when you live a certain way, when you find what might be called the mechanism, the invisible mechanism of life, the problems do disappear. Oh, you have them all right, but you know they're going to disappear. You're not worried about them. Why? Because your experience has told you that other problems have disappeared on a lesser level. And sure enough, today's and all the problems disappear. You call it your enchanted level. It's really the presence of the spirit. And I know everyone would like to reach that level, and I'm happy to report that I believe everybody will, because the Father has said, all that I have is thine. So when you get a touch of the Spirit, it opens one door, it generally comes along and opens other doors. Having come this far, let's consolidate it into a little meditation at the moment and get the feel of the unobstructed universe, spirit which floats in at a level different than the mental levels, the consciousness being divine, handling everything at the divine level, which is no level because it's infinite. Let's get a feeling of what it is to be in the middle of all the confusion of the world with no problem at all. Moment, you'll feel a certain kind of confidence. Which will not apply to any one situation. If you had a complicated problem in any field, when that moment arrives, a solution is in the wing. It may be a very difficult complication in handling affairs with people. When you have this consciousness, you can call right up in the most intricate level of the problem and say, Joe, I think we can handle it this way. All of a sudden it shows itself. What was unsolvable completely falls into place, all the bottlenecks fall away. I just hadn't seen it that way before. And I mean, there's no limitation to what's possible, because when you realize the solution, sometimes you may be told to do things that you wouldn't normally think you could do. This might involve 7 movements in a certain place, and my God, who would do that? Well, Spirit says this is how you do it. Nothing too small, nothing too great, but every situation can be handled from the truth standpoint at the spiritual level. Doesn't matter how bad it looked in the human. Some you get to believe in the miraculous. And some you're performing in the miraculous. I know we haven't reached the point yet where we go through the wall. But how can you miss when the wall is matter and you will be aware of your spirituality? seem incredible impossible, you might say, to a telephone executive that someone could call from here to a distant place without a telephone. But it's rather commonplace in the spirit. Can stand and have their conferences and have their x-rays, look at the slides. They can decide to do one thing or another. And the element of time is always involved. The time the heart will remain in operation, the time it takes to do the operation. In the spirit, the element of time is not involved. There's no recovery time involved. There's no time involved for anything because the spirit is already where it has to be. The spirit is now. When you find that something wonderful has happened, even for a space of time, that you're in a different thing in time, and it seems that everything you touch, it just responds automatically. You're in a now state, and you can't reach it by thinking about it or planning it. It has to happen. Now are the fields white. An enchanted state, that elevation, is the level at which God is always present. That's why some healings are instantaneous. And then on the mundane level, it may take years. That's why the healings of Jesus seem to be right now. He was able to live in the now. He couldn't live any other way. That's the way Spirit lives. Now, when we turn the page and we come to the case of any case of Jesus, the reader is seeing it one way in time, and Jesus is seeing it in the timeless now. But the reader can see it in the timeless now, too. Slow pace of human existence, the girl looks dead. To the infinitely faster, speedier face of the Christ, she's very much alive. In one case, the heart beats 60 times a minute, I don't know. The other case, you can't hear it beat. It's in a different elevation. Now, I know that you find at the moment that we're at a higher level than we were when we started. We're at the anything can happen level. I'd like you to therefore raise your soul. Make an effort to. And let your soul become aware of all the people who depend on you, and you become aware of them. Feel the oneness. Feel your there-ness and their here-ness now. I assure you, they will feel it too. People closer to you than they are in the human field. They're so close that you can touch their invisibility. On the ground floor of a Red Lion Hotel in San Diego. I'm just reminding you. It was the bride of the Lamb who became our soul consciousness in the last hour. And that's who the bride of the Lamb was, the soul of Christ. And we who lived in the soul of Christ for the past half hour have been introduced to the bride of the Lamb. That in this next chapter we'll have an interesting surprise for us. And he then showed me the pure river of water. of life. Clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street, and on either side of it, there were 12 manner of fruit. He's about to introduce us to the tree of life, which contains all of the so-called faculties that you will be fully aware of when you're elevated to that level. The point of these is that John has been there and is reporting to you what you will attain as you proceed with his direct conversation with Christ. Pure water of light, of life. If I could see that now, that would be our direct experience at all times. God would be part of everything you do in your consciousness. There wouldn't be a single finger that you would lift without it being a God activity. Everything would be motivated by the divine. As it should be now. We're in the final stages of the revelation. John has brought us all to witness that which he himself has seen. This little lad who came from the Holy Land, became the right hand of Jesus, has come up into the world, has received the message from Jesus, and is reporting that now the bride of the Lamb and now the pure water of life. There is no mortal thought. Every bit of mortal thought has been routed out of his system. Everything he thinks, sees, does, divine. In a way, we can live with the idea of shedding sunshine, of shedding truth. We can give out the water of life. You can become a fountainhead to all around you. It may seem commonplace to people in the street, but you can live a certain way. You can be a certain self. You can send out this river of pure water of life wherever you go. And some people do that. You feel it automatically in their presence. It's at one time they have started with the intention of doing it, and they have attained a level now where it's pretty an active state of their being. They can't think negatively. They can't criticize. They don't judge you. They're just flowing sunshine. And it's wonderful to meet one of these. He You don't think about where they've been or where they're going. You just bask in the sunshine of their, we call it personality, but it's more than that. This person is living within the God experience. And the God experience is living through this person. And this person is being cleansed completely of mortality. Take a look at yourself and listen to yourself. See if something like that is happening to you. It can and should. Find out if you're getting a point, if you're really acting divine. The Father said all that he had is thine. I'm sure that when all that he has is thine, you'll find yourself radiating this sunshine. There are some people who cannot do anything but radiate a quality. It's because there's no person there. They've gone beyond that. They are a God instrument. I'd be very happy when I get to be a God instrument that can give out this quality. It's invisible sunshine. But it wears off. It doesn't just come out of you. It builds the scenery around you with its invisible qualities. Everyone in the scene comes at you with a different electricity. In other words, what you give out is what you see. Let's strive for that. Let's lift our consciousness to the point where we're letting sunshine come out of ourselves. It won't be visible sunshine, but it's the sunshine of a spirit, alive, vibrant, spreading the good things that it finds on the path, not being distracted by the bad things, because it converts everything it sees into the goodness that is latent right there. You're always in a position where something is happening to take you to the other side of the ship. Where things are plentiful. Where actually the God experience is continuous. And I suppose it would be too much to expect the God experience to be continuous. And yet, if you live in heaven, that's what it would be. So it might not be a bad idea to think of the God experience as being as continuous as you can make it on earth. Just think of people living with that thought. The God experience is what is coming through me. I want to share it with you. I want you to share it with me. And I know we can do that. We do certain other things, certain little small things that distract, turn us away. We see certain people like that. Every time I look at them, I want to smile. There's a person there that's got a secret. I don't know what it is. There's always a certain look in their face that makes you happy. When you stop and think about it, they're going through that God experience all the time. That's what gives you a look. You're transfixed. Something happens to you. I noticed something, too, about those people. They're not the ones who are complaining about being sick, or that every third day something happens that's unsightly or impossible. They're the ones who seem to be living a charmed life. And there's many people that are here today who do that. When we meet them, we know there's something unusual about this person. What is it? What do I feel that's different? First of all, if it's gone, I feel the absence of a mortal concern about life. This person isn't fighting his day. He's not in class and home and thinking about, now what am I going to do about this situation? Why is it that the person in the divine flow of life doesn't think about situations? It's because they're all handled by the invisible God of his being. Each of us, when you stop and think, is carrying all the qualities of God where he is, she is. You may have thought you were lesser than that, but God doesn't. Each person carries every quality of God wherever he goes. Now, does he use these qualities or not? In many cases we look and we don't see them. But the qualities are there. Every quality required is there. When we see fear, we know that joy is there. It's just not being brought to the surface. Where illness is, we know that perfection is. Be perfect as God. It wasn't that you will become as perfect as God. Be perfect as God is. Every quality that we require for perfect living in the kingdom of God is right here. And it's the mixture of those qualities with what we are putting forth that keeps us right here. Now we're interested in rising higher. And how are we going to rise higher if we don't make the effort and if we don't see what higher means? Higher means keeping your consciousness pure and free of any thing that would mix with the purity of what you are. You are pure. If you look out and you don't see what you want to see, or if you find that when you think about yourself you don't feel good or right or going somewhere, think about the fact that you are pure. Now what are you clouding it up with? You can't be any more perfect than you are. And every imperfection is just a lie about God. Once in a while, it's good to take an exercise, something that shakes out of you all the negatives, all those qualities that represent the human, and to get, as it were, into your spiritual body, your angel suit. Let yourself go. Just let yourself go into a realm where the angel suit is why you're wearing it, where you are permitted because you are an angel. We can look out at the world. Suddenly I'm transplanted. I was on the earth. I was limited on the earth. I myself thought of my limitations. I knew what I couldn't do. And then one day, I don't know where it went, I'm forgotten. I've forgotten who I was as a limited self. There's a new self here, living in a new universe. And somehow I feel it's the right universe, the real universe. And who is this new self? The self that has all the limitations blasted right out of him. Have I turned over myself to I? Is that what's wrong? I forgot that I is who I am, and I'm letting me run this thing. Usually that's the case. A moment of forgetfulness, or let a me get in there. And I don't know, that me seems like it happened a century ago. A me who's divided and everything. I can't even recognize that me. And now I'm an I, undivided. I am. Starting that's a challenge. What am I starting that's new? Or am I going back to a repetition? Am I playing an old score? Have I got the courage to begin something new? Or try a new and better way to try the old? What am I doing about bringing life up to date? I have an ally on this. I'm not going to do it myself. yourself from the person. The person is your obstacle. All the person can do is get into negative and positive, never get out of the opposites. Shaking off that person, the person who's got all the reasons why this can't be done. This can't be done for this reason. I've got this to do. That reason, this reason, a million reasons about why you cannot do something. And I is waiting for it all to clear. This I is going to do what this person cannot do. I has it all mapped out. Biggest project on tap now? What is the obstacle in the way? Spirit is taking you to the divine flow where the rhythm is unimpeded. Lifting you to that level where there is no obstacle. An obstacle is not tolerated. It isn't even recognized. Little old men and women. We are free and vibrant. What are we going to do that's going to surprise the world? How do you put God activity into mundane mortal activity? To remove the sense of me, to completely remove the human self. world of vision. It thinks, and in the divine universe moves too fast for its thought, regardless of what it thinks. Action of life is still in your head. It's got to be raised. Lift up the Son of Man. Turn your life over to the divine now. Or are you afraid? Must you hang that behind it and judge it and pass on it and approve or disapprove what it does? Or can you let the divine take over without any passing approval or disapproval? Perfect as God. Is that too high an aspiration? This day is a perfect day to renew our faith in ourselves, our faith in our ultimate experience, our release from the world of matter, and to renew our pledge to move in that direction, ever upward, ever seeking out that which will improve and purify. That we may completely represent the divine self on earth. Exciting talk. It was very brief. In his crucifixion, he said, "Father, into thy hands I commend my soul." We're going to have to come to that someday. Maybe it's worth thinking about how you'll prepare for it. To be able to completely give out your being to the One with no regrets. Into thy hands I commend my soul. As close as you can get to that point would be desirable. Each and every one who is here today, I want to exchange the deepest greetings of love, the deepest desire for your progress, the deepest desire to do anything to aid you in that progress. We're all going to the same place. Infinity is going to infinity. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into our channel. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button below. It really helps us out. And why not share this video with your friends? Spread the word and help us reach more people. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video from us. Thanks for watching and see you next time.